Hi there. My name is Mandy Gatlin. Welcome to this webinar titled Should I Stay or Should I Go? If you've made it to this webinar, then you're probably in a very tough place. You're probably trying to make a really difficult decision, not only for yourself, but for the other person on the other side. And I empathize with you because I have been there personally. Now, I'm a spiritual love coach now. I wasn't always one. I have been for about 10 years now. And I work with people on many different levels, but this has to be one of the toughest questions that people come to me with. And while I can tune in for people, what I really like to do is to help people get their answer. So my goal for you today is to help you get to that place where you get your answer. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of an adventure today. I'm going to help you by giving you some tools, and I'm also going to give you some case studies. Now, these are people that I personally worked with. They are people who were also in this very difficult place and came out of it on the other side. They made their decision. So I'm going to take you through a couple of those examples so that you can see what it's like to have that challenge, to have that burning question, and then be able to get to an answer. All right. And my goal with doing that is to help you get to your answer. Now, every situation is unique, and I also offer, which this is part of this webinar, I want to see if we are a match. So during this webinar, if you feel like you need to work with somebody to get that support, to get you to not only to your answer, but to give you tools and to help you move forward, then that's partly what this webinar is about as well. Okay, so welcome to the webinar. And really why we're here, it all has to do with your happiness. I want you to feel like you can be in a relationship, to feel love, and to feel happy. I mean, that's the point of being in a relationship. You want it to at least be like the majority of the time, you want it to be where you're in love and happy. It's not always going to be that way, but we do want that the majority of the time. So again, my name is Mandy Gatlin, and I'm a spiritual love coach. And my goal for you today is to help you get clarity so you can feel confident. I want to help you get your answer. So where are you now? If you're here, you're probably feeling pretty stuck, pretty confused. You might be feeling ambivalent. You're probably feeling like you're in a state of limbo, like you're torn in different directions. I remember this being very high anxiety. I felt like I was walking around and just constantly hiding this huge burning question that I had that I just couldn't find an answer to. That definitely caused me a lot of sleepless nights. That might be your experience as well. I did feel very disconnected, not only from myself, but also from my mate, and also from a lot of people around me, because I didn't want them to worry. So your situation might be a little bit different, but most likely if you're here, you're probably experiencing some type of disconnection, and that could be just with your mate, but it could also be on many different levels. And disconnection is never a good thing. You know, to feel happy in life, it's very important to feel like you can connect. Also, you're probably feeling like you're on different pages with your mate. And that's very common. Generally, when you're having, relationship problems, That's one of the things that people come to me and say, I am just not feeling like I'm on the same page at all. Like we just have different values completely. So is this you? Are you feeling lackluster in your relationship? Are you like sleeping in different places of your house, or maybe different houses? Maybe you're in a room together, but you're just not feeling like you're not even want to share a bed. Are you feeling numb and disconnected? Are you doubting each other in your relationship all the time? Are you pondering or thinking about what it would be like to even leave? Maybe you're scared to leave. You're not sure about it. A lot of times people come to me, they have kids and they don't want to leave because of their kids. So they stay in this relationship that is really no good just for their kids. So I'm not saying that's your situation, but that could be definitely a problem that you're facing. Maybe you're lacking clarity about what to do. You're just feeling kind of like, I have no clue. But I know something deep inside of me doesn't feel well about this. And if you're here at this webinar, then you're probably feeling like enough is enough. You're probably just at that point now where you're like, I need an answer. Maybe you have tried reading self-help books, going to counseling, talking to friends and family, going to seminars, taking love courses, going on retreats, having date nights, and the list goes on and on. I know for me personally, I did all of these things on the list plus some. My ex and I went to counseling not once, not twice, probably hundreds of times over years. And we even saw various counselors. So we pretty much exhausted every possibility on this list. So I feel for you if you've definitely tried all these things and have had no success with figuring out what to do. Now, what this webinar is designed to do is a couple of things. Most important thing, I want to help you access your own heart to get an answer. That is the most important thing that I want for you. I'm also hoping to offer you some steps, some tools to gain clarity and confidence in this dilemma, because it's no fun if you have, if you don't know what steps to take, then you're probably just kind of going all over the place, reaching out here and looking there, and it just feels very it just feels very exhausting at some point. So I'm hoping to give you some tools today that you can use and really start using right now. So who am I? My name's Mandy Gatlin. I'm a spiritual love coach. I'm also an energy worker and a medium. Now, I was married for years and years. I had a whole other life before the life that I have now. My ex and I basically when we got together, we were pretty young, and he was one religion and I was another. And we pretty much dropped who we both were so that we could become something different in order for our relationship to thrive. So if you're hearing that correctly, we basically turned into something else other than ourselves to make our relationship work. And now I know, looking back, that's a recipe for disaster. But back then, it was the only thing that we knew to do in order to make our relationship work. And I didn't know, I didn't have the tools back then. I wish I did. I wish that I had somebody to say to me, really look at these things. They matter. But I didn't have that. And so, you know, things worked for a little while. And then with time, we both started to kind of emerge naturally into our own selves. And we started to kind of fall away or fall apart from each other. And this is very common for people that come to me. Generally, they're in that place. They're in a place of, you know, he's off doing this, I'm off doing that. We have kids in the middle, and, you know, our lives are so busy. You know, we never go out on dates. The kids always come first, their activities. We never take time for vacation. We never just go, you know, out on date nights or do any of those things. And we really don't have anything in common, you know, anymore. And so, and then they start nitpicking. People start nitpicking after that about little things that bother them, you know, about the person. And maybe those things wouldn't really matter if it was just a loving relationship, but because it's become a problem, now it's like, those little things are really giant things, you know, like he's always leaving the cup on the counter. He never listens to me, you know. So those things become really giant things at some point. So usually when people are coming to me at this point, they are feeling pretty much at their wits' end. And I remember that feeling. I remember feeling like my ex and I, we got to a point where we were at a crossroads, and we had actually even started going down different paths from one another. I mean, a lot of the things that he loved to do, he started doing, and a lot of the things I love to do, I started doing. And we were not combining those things or helping each other like thrive in those things even. We just started living totally different lives. So at some point, I felt very alone, very sad. I remember being in the grocery store, and I saw a couple in front of me, and they were walking through the grocery store, just taking their time, looking for the products they needed, shopping together, and they were holding hands. And I saw that, and I felt a pang of jealousy in my heart. I actually started to cry. Tears were just like flowing down my face because I knew I didn't have that. And that sadness, I'm here to tell you, that sadness is a sign. There's definitely something, if you're feeling that sad or that frustrated, then something is off, something is wrong. And by asking this question, this should I stay or should I go, you are at least facing your fear. You're at least getting to that place where you can be brave and ask yourself some tough questions to see if, you know, it's to exhaust everything, right? To get to that point where you feel like, I feel clear about this. I have tried everything, and now I'm at that place where I have my answer. Okay. That's where I'm trying to get you. So I personally tried books, I tried seminars, I tried therapy, even with my ex. He and I went to multiple therapists. None of that worked. We tried date nights, we tried reconnecting, we tried talks. I mean, I kind of got to the point where I called it, we were basically talking, and it was like we were in a toilet bowl, and the water was just going around and around. It was like it never got flushed. You know, we never got to that place where we finally just felt relieved, like it was a good conversation. It was just always like these bad conversations. So what did finally work for me personally in that relationship was when I got my answer. When I finally asked myself this tough question, should I stay or should I go? And I got my answer. So I'm going to take you guys through 3 ways that I was able to find my answer. Okay. And these things are tools that you can use to discover your own answer. They're very easy, they're very effective. They will definitely give you direction, right? They're going to start getting you in some kind of direction, and you can use them right away. You can use them right now. So, what are these tools? The first one, this is probably my favorite tool. It's the one that I use with pretty much all of the people that come to me with this burning question. I ask them, what are your values? And what are your mate's values? So you basically sit down and you get out a piece of paper and you write down your top values. You just write down words or things that come to mind to you that are really important to you. Some of those things could be family. They could be work. If you're, it could be your business, if you own a business. It could be love. Okay, so these values can be concepts, they can be people, they can be things. Just name a couple of things that are your top values. Now, for some people, religion and spirituality are important to them. Love is really important to them, to feel loved in their way. So for me personally, I remember walking in that grocery store and seeing a couple and seeing them holding hands and me wanting that. And so touch is very important to me. I want quality time and I want touch with a person. So try to get specific and really figure out what are your values. And then you want to also try to get a sense of what your partner's values are. Okay. And the reason that this is important, it's not to nitpick at each other and go, well, you like this and you like that, and, to judge one another. That's not the point of this. Maybe you're a workaholic and you like to work and the other person really loves family. And, maybe it's very easy to get into a judgmental place with this, but I don't want you to. The reason that I want you to do this is to see if some of those values align for the two of you, right? It became very clear to me at some point with my now ex that our values were completely different, right? When he and I first met, we were different people. And then when we came together, we became this couple to make this thing work. And over time, we were slowly starting to emerge into who we really were again. And he was very religious and I was very spiritual, but those two things were not aligning. He was wanting me to be more like him. And I had to kind of say in a truthful way, like, that's not me, And when I said that to him, it really hurt him. He had this expectation that I was going to be that way. And I had never promised that, So these are really important things. These are things that you want to look at with kind of a clear eye. You don't want to judge, but you do want to look at them and say, okay, this is reality. Like, he's this, I'm that, and and then there could be some things where you do align. Now, let's say that you don't completely align in all of these things. The next thing to really ask is, can you honor the other person's values? Can you support that person in their values? Are those things that you feel kind of like, I'm okay with that? All right. Now, to give you an example, okay, I'm going to go the vegan route or like food route, because so many people these days are changing their eating habits so rapidly. And so sometimes people are changing their food habits, and then it becomes clear like one person is eating, poor food, and then this other person is shifting and changing and wanting to eat more healthy. And so it could become a challenge in your relationship if you are trying to accept that this other person wants to eat like potato chips and drink soda for the rest of their life. Now, I am just saying that as an example. There are way worse things to be critical of, in particular drug use, okay, or people who are being violent to others or to themselves. So there might be people who, value being able to have a lax lifestyle and to be able to use drugs. And then the other person on the other side of it is saying, I don't want that, in my life. So you can see where it gets to be really clear, right, with your values in terms of the things you value and they value, and can they not only can they align, but if they don't align, that's okay. Can you honor what that other person wants? Because when you're in a loving relationship, you want to get to that point where you can support that person in the things that they need in their life. And that's true love, when you're able to support that person in that. But when it comes to things like sexuality and behavior and drug use, those kinds of things can be real legitimate reasons why people should not be together. Okay, so you can get some real clarity from this one here. I gave you my example. The biggest one between my ex and I had to do with our religious choices. When we got together, it was not such an important thing. We kind of put that on hold so that we could get into our relationship and get it moving. But at some point down the line, our true selves really started to emerge, and it became clear that he was wanting to be one way and I was wanting to be another. It doesn't make either one of us right or wrong. It just made it really difficult for us to agree, on things a lot of the time. All right, so this is a great one to look at. Now, the other tool that I want to give you guys, the second tool, is to ask yourself whether you can be yourself when you're around each other. Here are some questions to ask to really see if you're able to accomplish feeling like you can just be yourself. I mean, that's truly the most important thing for you in life, is to feel like you're accepted for who you are. And that matters not only in your relationship, but at your job, and even with your own true self. Okay, so ask yourself, are you behaving a certain way to make your relationship work? All right. That question alone would stop me in my tracks. If I was you right now and I was going through my, ask myself this question, I was definitely behaving a different way just to make my relationship survive and to work. I was making all kinds of excuses to make it work. All right. So definitely ask yourself that. Do you feel like you're walking around on pins and needles? This is very common. For people that come to me, usually they're at this point. They're at that point where they just feel like they can't feel settled, like they can't feel comfortable. Are one of you or both of you requiring the other person to be something they're not? All right. So are you like putting down ultimatums to make the other person be something or do something. Okay, that could be like something simple like making you eat a certain way when you really don't want to. Okay, that could be making you eat healthy, or making you eat, meat, or making you eat, or drink and go out and drink, force you to do something or be something that you're not. All right. If that's the case, that's not a good thing. All right. And then finally ask yourself, were you ever able to be yourself around each other? So this is important because at some point you might be kind of getting to a split where you're kind of going down the road and you're turning into, you're feeling like you're disconnected from each other. But maybe at some point previously you were able to feel comfortable being around each other. And sometimes people just lose sight. I have counseled many people through that situation where they just aren't I call it putting your hands in the garden. They're just not nurturing their relationship enough. So they've basically just become too busy, right? And they've forgotten like how to even nurture their relationship. So ask yourself that, were you ever able? And if you were, then this may still have, you may still have a chance, okay, at making this work. So if you feel like you never were, then that's not a good thing, all right? The third thing that I usually suggest to people, if you're in a really tough spot, this one I give to people when they are really just like at their enough is enough. They're done. They're up to here. They really need an answer. Okay. This one's called taking a break, and this can be as long or short as you want. I generally recommend more than 3 days. This basically entails you finding a way to get away. Okay, so getting away from each other and having a little break. It's good if you can do a week. 2 weeks is even better, all right? But a week is sufficient. Generally, I recommend taking a journal with you during that week, and every morning and evening, journaling how you feel so that you can write that down and you can take some notes and look back on it each day and see if things change for you, see if you start to feel like you miss the other person, or see if you feel relieved when you leave the person. I have to say that it wasn't until I officially took a break, like really officially took a break from my ex, that I noticed a big shift, a big change for me, because I was living in kind of like a fog. It was a really interesting experience, and many people that I've talked to also have had this feeling. When you're with someone, sometimes you just get, your brain is just kind of operating in this place of like, okay, make it work. Everything's going to be okay, and you're making excuses and you're compromising all the time, and you're mitigating problems and all that. So it puts you in this funky cloud where you're hardly even, your spirit or your true self is not even really present anymore. So when you're able to take a break from that other person, a lot of times after about the 3rd day, you start to feel different. You start to feel your own self emerging, because you have to make your own decisions about like what you're going to eat, what you're going to watch on TV, what activities you're going to do each day, maybe even the clothes that you wear. It comes down to these small things that you might be doing for the relationship, for the other person, and they might be things that totally go against your values and totally go against who you really are. So it's not until you are officially away from that person for a couple of days, that you start to unwind and get to a place where you can feel like yourself. And that is the key to this. Once you get there, then journal each day and see how you feel. All right. I call this recentering to your own true self. This gives you a chance. It gives you an opportunity to ask your own heart what it wants and what it needs each day. All right. And that is super important. It's really important in your own life to feel that you can be yourself and that you can live, your life, your journey. It is important to, love the other person and to give them love and understand what's important for them too, but not at the expense of you being yourself. Okay. Always come from this at a place with love, right? From your heart. So those three things are just a few tools. These are just a couple of things that I used myself, that I often share with people to help them tune in and get their own answer. Now, through asking those questions or going through those tools, you might start to be feeling like even more nervous. You might start to be feeling like more anxiety because you feel this answer creeping up, right? I remember feeling that too. Like I kind of really did know my answer. And so a lot of times what I will say, to someone is, if you're a man, okay, what would you tell your buddy to do? If you're a woman, what would you tell your girlfriend? Okay. And be real, you guys. You have to be real. If you would curse to them, curse to them. Okay. Really, if you were your own best friend, okay, what would you say to that person in this moment after knowing those things that we just went through, those three things? What would they say to you? And oftentimes you feel that answer creep up, and then you go, oh, no, I can't. Now we're going to get into a little bit of that next, but I just want to show you guys there are way more tools at your expense. Okay, there are things that I work with people. Some of those things are love languages. I mean, they're all listed here. Some are, where's your energy now? Like, a lot of people live in the past and they're not really in the present. So I often ask, where are you now with things? Things might have been this way, but what are you at? Where are you at now? Divine permission is like, an example of that is like, if God can come down and say to you, here you are, here's your permission slip to do whatever you want, what would you do? Right? Because oftentimes religion stops us. I know in my case, I grew up Catholic. I had all these beliefs about marriage and staying with a person forever and commitment. And those things were keeping me stuck, and stuck in a relationship where it was borderline, the other person was a bully and somewhat abusive. So, if God could say to you, like real God, okay, not judgmental God, whatever, some of these religions make God out to be, but like this loving divine being says to you, here you go, here's your permission slip. What then would you do, right? That's another tool that you can use. So these are the tools here. You can see there are many of them to use to really kind of get your answer, okay? So what does it mean when you make the decision to stay? All right. I've worked with many people through this. I would say probably, about half of them stay in their relationship and probably about half of them go. when you make the decision to stay, after you have done this, when you've worked through these tools and you kind of have your answer, it helps you because then you can move forward with reconnection. All right. Once you make the decision to stay, that means that you are developing your connection with the other person. You start to learn to speak to one another in your love languages. All right. So you start to understand the needs of the other person and you honor them. You start to honor them. Your decision, comes from your heart. So this means that you are accessing love. All right. So if you're making the decision to stay, then you know that you have you've done the work and you are now you're going to be in a place of love to work with this person, this other person. When you stay, it means you're holding space for growth. Okay, it's tough, you guys, to be in a relationship. It's not always easy. So you have to know that you're definitely going to be growing. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be things that you're challenged by that you have to accept about this other person. But finally, on this list, you'll see your love evolves, right? It expands and it grows with time. So by getting through this with the other person, it means that you are going to be evolving as a being. Now, what does it mean when you make the decision to leave, right? Probably one of the toughest decisions I have ever made in my entire life, all right? It means that you get to move forward with confidence and clarity when you make that decision, all right? When you get your answer to go, then you know that you need to do it, all right? It feels true to you, it feels confident, and you feel like you can now move forward with your life. You might be making this decision for the both of you, all right? But know that it is probably what is really needed. My ex and I, we carried this on for like 6 or 7 years. Okay, that's too long. I didn't have a coach like me to help someone, get to this tough question and have it answered. I went through all of these like trouble areas, like looping back to feeling guilty and all of those things, and really I knew deep down what needed to happen. I think he did too, but he didn't want to be the one to make that decision. So I had to be the one to make that tough decision and really move forward. And now we are both in totally different relationships. He is in a relationship aligned with his wife and has children, and I have moved forward. I have a new business, a new life, a new husband. I have dogs. It's a totally different life than what he and I had before. In fact, sometimes I think about my life and I'm like, did I really live there? Was I with that guy for all those years? It just feels like a whole other lifetime. But when you do make this decision to leave, know that you can do this from a place of love. A lot of the people that I work with like that. They don't want to do this out of spite, or they don't want to be angry. They're just tired of being angry and tired of being sad, and they want to do it from a place of love. So also know that, trust this, you're going to each evolve into who you're meant to be, okay? If you make that decision to leave, know that there's something better for each of you. There really is. It's not like your lives are going to collapse upon themselves, you'll each evolve in the way that you're supposed to evolve, and you just have to trust that, okay? And really let that happen. The majority of the time, I would say 99% of the time, I see when people do this, when they allow each other to evolve, it comes out even better than what they had before. Okay. Also, when you make the decision to leave, you grow and connect with love that matches you. All right. So you get to move forward, and then you get to meet people who are on that path that you're now walking. So it's super exciting because you get to meet people who are on the path of you. You know, you're walking your path now, and you get to go, hey, you look like somebody who's fun to hang out with. And I'm not just talking about a new mate, I'm talking about friends, you know, people you consider your new family. I mean, people that you would have never ever known before because you were being somebody completely different. You were being someone else. All right. So know that your love is going to evolve and grow no matter what. So now we get to ask, what do we do with this information? Once you have these tools and you get your answer, then we start to build a plan. All right. It's important for you to, once you get your answer, to start thinking about what baby steps you need to take. This is where it can help, because if you don't do that, then you loop back to, should I stay or should I go again? Okay. And we don't want you to keep going back to that question. Once you get your answer and you feel like it's, 80, 90% there, then you want to start formulating a little plan for yourself. Okay. You can be talking to your mate if you want about how you've been feeling and the things that you've been thinking, or you can keep this to yourself. It's totally up to you, right? You get to make this whatever you want, but definitely get support around you. Okay, I usually suggest to reach out to a really good friend or a couple of really good friends and kind of put them on notice that this is where you are now, that you've made this decision, and that you may need some help, with this. So in either case, whether you stay or whether you go, sometimes for people that stay, what I see is that they get help from their community of people where they hang out, especially with their mate. Like it could be their church or their spiritual center, something like that. It could be, a rabbi or someone that you connect with, right? That you trust. It could be a teacher, a mentor, someone that you trust, okay? For the people that need to leave, I often see them go to really close friends, people who they know that they can call upon late at night and say, I have to leave now and I need a room. So you may want to be preparing for that in some way. Those are the really tough steps, the really tough things to be thinking about once you have your answer. So these are the things that you and I sometimes work with when I work with people one-on-one, is getting them to answer a lot of those little questions, those little things like trying to get their setup right, and get their world right so that they can have success with this new answer that they have. So you definitely want to be taking actions that support your plan. Okay, so if you are recommitting yourself to your relationship, then it wouldn't support your plan to be out every single night of the week away from your mate. Okay, so you want to be taking actions that support this new answer. If you decide to leave, then it wouldn't make sense to keep hanging around your old mate, all right, anymore. Like it wouldn't make sense to keep hanging on to their stuff anymore. Okay, so these are tough things, but things that I can definitely help you with if you need that help and you need that support. If you still have anxiety, this is something really important to note. It could be that you're having trouble getting clarity. all right? And this is where I say definitely try to reach out then to people who can give you unbiased support and help you get to that clarity, all right? Some people try therapists. That didn't really work for me. But if it's, a friend, a coach, someone who's kind of like level-headed, that can offer you some steps or some ways to get that, to get more clarity for yourself. You want to feel like the answer is coming from you, not from them. Now, if you go to that friend and they are giving you their advice, but it feels like it's coming from them, that can sometimes still be helpful, because you can drive away and in your mind you can kind of say, well, that's how they feel about it, but how do I feel about it? And I had that happen actually a couple times for myself, all right? So now I want to give you guys a couple of examples. These are people that I have counseled. They're people that I have actually helped through real life situations. And, they needed support and they needed help with getting their answer and creating a plan. This first example, her name was Julie, and she was feeling very disconnected from her guy. They were arguing all the time over money, mostly. He was having a hard time keeping a job. He would get one and work, and then he would lose his job, and then he was always asking her for money, always coming back, needing money for cell phones, needing money for this, needing money for that, and not making the best decisions with money either, and never really making an effort to improve his finances or improve, his way with money. Julie was a very supportive wife. She was always offering him help. She felt like that was important, to do that in her marriage. And he made her feel guilty. He took advantage of that. And he was always making her feel guilty if she didn't help. I mean, he knew what buttons to push, okay? Now, this came after many sessions with Julie, right? Because we all paint a picture. When you first meet someone and you hear their story, you paint this picture of like everything's blissful, but there's this one little problem. And then as people really start to open up to me more, I start to hear and see things where I'm like, wow, you kind of like, you're glossing over some things that are really important here. So, there was a lot of guilt, and she never realized that. Okay. She never saw it as guilt. She just always felt bad and didn't know why. Okay. She was always feeling exhausted, and she was always feeling sad. And she came to me because she's like, I need a change. This has to change. Now, with Julie, I coached her. I basically worked with her. I heard her story, and we worked through many of these tools. And one of the tools that really helped her was the values tool. She started to understand that her values had a lot to do with religion and with finances and with honesty and integrity. And his values were completely different. Now, he did have a high value of family, but he was considering his family in terms of his daughter that he had through another marriage. He was never considering her really as family, okay? And then also work was really important to him, but yet he could never really keep a job. So his values were kind of all over the place and really strange. And then her values were really clear. And by being together, he was kind of dragging her down and kind of making her feel like, she was the bad guy in this because she wasn't helping him out. So after seeing her values, that's when Julie really saw kind of in clear black and white. She was like, okay, I see it. Like, were totally on different pages. So with Julie, we basically had to take a couple of steps because she had to get him out, which is never easy when the other person isn't making a whole lot of money. And so we talked that through, and she made some decisions about, how they could move, forward and get him into a space and be taken care of so that she could move forward too, with her life and have her own space. Once they did that, it became very clear that she was much happier. She felt relieved, and that made her answer even more 100% that she had done the right thing to leave and to lovingly release this relationship. Okay. So another example that I'd love to share with you is from a man that I was working with, and his name was George. And George was living with Clara for quite a long time. You could have considered them to be married. I mean, they weren't married, but they were together for many years, and they enjoyed a lot of things together. So in this case, when we did the values together, George and Clara actually had a lot of values in alignment. So there were things that stood out to them that were like, we actually do get along. I mean, we have hobbies. We have things that, we like to do together. Dancing, they love to make dinner together. They love to hang out and have quality time with one another. So on the outside, this couple looked like picture perfect. Okay, they just looked like they were meant to be together. They looked like a pair. But George was never really feeling like he could be himself around Clara. So when they started to talk, and I had the chance to talk to Clara too, George was always saying that he just never was made to feel like he could be himself. And Clara was always trying to make George be something. He was always, she was always saying, he just needs to do this and he just needs to do that. And even through counseling Clara through, that George is himself. This is who he is. He's actually, pretty good guy. I mean, he had a job. He was supportive of her, as she was going through her job and trying to get paid more. He was pretty supportive, and yet Clara she just couldn't let go. She just wanted to make sure that he was feeling okay all the time and doing this for himself and doing that for himself. And it wasn't until George finally said, I think I want to try taking a break. And so he decided to take a week-long stay away from Clara. And he told Clara, this is my plan. I want to take a break. I want that to be a time where we don't connect with one another. So I don't want phone calls or emails or anything like that. Only if you have a life-threatening emergency, will we contact one another. And so she agreed, and said, okay, but she was very scared. She felt very threatened at this point. And George took his break. He did some journaling, and within a couple of days, George was already getting his answer. He already started to feel like he just felt relieved. He felt like he could be more himself. And so he got his definite answer after doing that. And he was able to leave and do this in a very loving way. He was always telling Clara, this is how I feel. These are the things that I'm going through. And she wasn't she wasn't throwing a fit or anything, but she definitely felt sad, about this, because she definitely wanted them to be working on this and working together. But George got his answer. And this was something that he felt, they both should do to move forward. And in fact, they did both move on, and they're aligning more with their true selves now. So you can see this kind of evolving that's happening in each of them, where they're dating people who are more of a fit for each of them, and really becoming more clear about that. So for myself personally, when I went through, asking myself this question, should I stay or should I go? My life completely changed after I made the decision to leave. Many things were not a fit for me. I told you at the very beginning, my ex and I, we both were living for each other instead of really accepting one another for who we were. And I was always made to feel guilty for who I was. And because of my old beliefs, my Catholic upbringing, my religious upbringing, I kept myself in this state of limbo for years. Okay, it was no fun. It was not cool. And yet I knew deep down, I knew something was off. And yet I was made to feel like I was wrong, like that I was the bad guy. And it wasn't until I really accessed help and got support that I was able to get some space, take a break, right? I made a plan for myself. I'm going to go take a break. And when I did that, I reclaimed myself. I was able to really hear what my heart wanted and what my heart needed. And then taking action became easier for me. Then it was kind of like everything fell into place. I was able to access my peace. I mean, I kid you not. I remember walking through Target, the store Target, and I was skipping in an aisle. I was skipping along, and I said, I don't have to go home to him. And I stopped, and I was like, oh my God, did I just say that? I mean, I realized that I didn't have to go home, and put on this weird persona, to make this thing work anymore. And that's when it clicked for me. And I realized 100% I had made the right decision, all right? So how can you access your peace and your own heart, right? Basically, it comes down to you can't ignore the feelings you're having. If you are feeling sad, if you are feeling frustrated, if you are feeling confused, there's a reason that you are feeling that. And if you ignore them, they're just going to get louder and worse, okay? Also, to access your own heart, you can't believe the things that your mate or your friends or your family are telling you. Some of what they say might be true, but I'm telling you 90% of it is garbage. Okay? It's garbage to you. You have to access this answer for your own self, all right? And you can't do that by believing everything that your church, that your mate, that your friends tell you, okay? You have to feel into it, into your own heart, and ask your own heart, what is true to me? What do I know to be true? Because let me tell you, you might be going through some change in your life. You might be up-leveling or upgrading or shifting or changing in some way. And it's really important to honor that. Okay, you don't want to try to push yourself down or, keep yourself from shifting and changing, because if you do, it's not going to come out very good, right? You usually end up changing no matter what, and you'll just get more angry if you're not allowing yourself to change the way you need to. The important thing to get to that answer, to get to your heart, is to ask someone who can help you access it by giving you these tools, giving you these questions, and helping you get to your own answer. All right, so you want to be working with someone who's unbiased and who can really help you delve deep. You want to answer that feels true to you and feels valid to you. So the way to do that is to test your answer out for validity, okay? the way that I say to test is to, in some cases, it's like, once you understand what your values are, then you can go to the other person and you can sit with them, right? And you can say, so I know these are my values and I know these are your values. And, for us to be able to really move forward, to be able to stay together, I think we have to support one another in these things. Now, by testing that, what you're doing there is you're testing it out. You're seeing if the other person, you're kind of putting the ball in their court. How do they respond to that? If they come back to you and they say, screw you, this is who I am, and I don't have to accept who you are, that kind of gives you your answer. Okay. The other way to test out for validity is to take a break from one another and to see how you really feel. And if you feel more at peace and the other person is flipping out, then you might have your answer there too. Okay. So definitely test out your answer for validity once you get it. And then always remember to get support as you move forward. So once again, I would remind you to, once you have your answer, make a little plan for yourself and get some steps that you feel might be next, whether that be, if you feel like you're going to leave, maybe you need to go look at apartments, as a step. It's not to say that you're going to go live in an apartment, but at least it gives you that feeling of, what does it feel like when I'm walking around an apartment for myself? Okay, it starts to give you some answers. It starts to make you feel even more clear. And that can really help you, give you more confidence about your answer. So how can I help? I'm working with a select group of people. I have been feeling called to help people through this huge question. And I have been working with people. This is my passion. I work with tons of people through difficult relationship questions. And I always feel good about seeing people reach their decision and get happier. I mean, there's just something about that I just feel like I have the luckiest job, when I get to see somebody on the other side of a dilemma like this. And I have to say, it goes in both ways. I've seen people who have come back together as a couple after going through this big question. They decide to move forward and stay together, and then they have kids. And I get to witness that. And then I also see people who make this hard decision, to leave, and they do, and then they get stronger and they get more confident, and they meet someone who is a match for them, and they find their happiness. They really get more into themselves again and really understand what it means to honor, their true self. So right now I am looking to work with a few people, and I will be taking you through more of these tools to help you get clarity so that you can feel sure about whether to stay and fight for your marriage or to lovingly release it. So I'm basically here to help you discover your answer. So I'm ready to jump on a call with you and use my abilities to tune in with you from a spiritual standpoint and help you access your own heart. So I'm basically going to be asking you tons of questions and kind of helping you see, what is it? How are you feeling? What are your answers revealing? And really coming at it from a place of just love and acceptance for however you answer and for however you feel about things. I offer you space to be yourself. So I'm not going to judge you. I've heard it all. I mean, I've heard people who, they absolutely are judging themselves for being a certain way. And I'm like, there's no judgment. That's totally fine. Whatever you feel. So as long as you're not harming someone else, right? So the golden rule applies. Do no harm to anyone. But basically, we're going to be talking about where you are in your relationship, what you feel is kind of off, and where you would like things to be. So I want to help you get a clear answer, about really where you want to be. And then once we get your answer, we work on creating a plan to get you onto a better path so that you feel like you can take steps, step by step, little baby steps to get you moving in the right direction. So I'm going to say to you, you probably don't know what you don't know, okay? I've been there. I know what this feels like to be stuck. I went through it for years. I'm usually so proud of people when I work with them and they're able to make this decision in months. I'm like, oh my God, I wish I had someone to help me make that decision in months instead of years of my life gone by and wasted. I struggled in my marriage. I didn't realize that I was a totally different person for years of my life. I wasn't myself. And now my life is completely different. I'm married to a man who matches me. I mean, we have values that are in alignment. Some things we aren't in complete agreement with, but we both support each other in those things. We listen to each other and honor those things in one another. In fact, we often brag, about those other things to other people. So we are definitely in alignment and sharing on a much bigger level than I ever was before in my life. You don't know. What I'm trying to say to you right now is you don't know until you reach out and see if all of this pain that you've been feeling, if that is saying something to you, right? If that is a message. Most people just stop and they're just so stuck in the pain. And I was doing that for a really long time. And I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought that I had depression or, at times I even thought about getting medication. And I'm so glad that I never did that because I don't think I would have gotten more clarity, on medication. So what I'm saying is you may not know what you don't know. All right. So it's really good to reach out and get support and have someone ask these questions with you. So basically, I'm ready to jump on a call with you. If you want to do that, I'm offering a free session to basically go through some of these tools with you personally and see if we can help you get your answer and even kind of create a little plan for yourself. And I walk you through a lot of these steps. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, then please go to amandagatlin.com/love. And you can read more and you can kind of get an idea of what I'm doing to be working with people, get some of your questions answered, and then also we can talk personally and you can ask me questions. I love doing that with people just to help them kind of get a start or get a sense, of where they are. And then we can go from there and see, if it feels like a match, if you feel like this would benefit you, and then we could really truly get your clarity and get your answer and get that in a very short time frame, okay, so that you don't have to feel that pain anymore. That's the most important thing, is to move on with your life and feel happy and confident in the decision that you've made. All right, so thank you so much for watching this webinar. Please go to this page, check out the scheduler, and find a day and time that works for you. And if you have any questions, then please reach out to me. My email address is discoveryourenergy@yahoo.com. Once again, my name is Mandy Gatlin. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.